Hey guys, welcome to Supply Chain Fundamentals. So sourcing and supply chain is a super important part of running your Amazon business because it's how you're going to get your product ready and shipped to whichever market you're going to be selling in. It's also going to be one of the biggest line items on your income statement, and that's why I'm really excited to give you a good foundation on this. To make sure that we're all on the same page, I wanted to cover some of the key terms that you're going to see often thrown out, and these are also often used in the industry as well. So first is EXW versus FOB. So these are Incoterms or international commercial terms, and it basically dictates who has ownership and the responsibility when the goods are being transferred from your supplier's warehouse to the port. And the port is actually the airport if you're doing air transportation, or to the actual seaport if you're doing ocean. EXW or EXW. So this means that the buyer has full responsibility all the way from the supplier's warehouse all the way to wherever it's going. And so that means that you need to contract a specific forwarder that's going to be helping you with that basically door-to-door transportation. This is not what I would recommend for a new Amazon seller, and I'll cover a little bit more why. So the other option is FOB or free on board. I wish it meant actually free, but what this means is that the supplier is going to be responsible for, again, getting those goods to the port in China. So let's say it's FOB Shanghai or Ningbo. That means Shanghai has the airport. So that means if you're sending the goods by air, they're responsible for getting it there and paying for that transportation. Or if it's like Ningbo, that means that you're sending it by ocean. They're also going to be taking the transportation there. Just so you guys know, the manufacturers can sometimes have an MOQ specifically for your FOB shipments. So that means if they're paying, let's say, for the truck to get your products to the airport, they're going to want to make sure that you have like 200 cartons or 300 cartons or whatever it may be, depends on the product and the size. Because if you're, let's say, for an example, you're doing a tiny test order to Canada and it's like 100 units, it doesn't financially make sense for them to pay for that. So in that situation, you might want to do that test order with Canada in conjunction with your shipment going to the US, so that it's a bigger order for that transportation to be split amongst all of those units, and then both of you guys are happy. So this is a cool little graph that we found that I thought would be really helpful in terms of visualizing who has the responsibility and where. So if you look at the top bar, the first section is FOB, which is the seller or the manufacturer, and they have the responsibility all the way to the port. And then going forward is the buyer's responsibility. So it's from the port all the way to door. And the door in this could be your home, or it could be Amazon FBA, or your own specific warehouse. And then the second line is EXW, and that's from door to door, the buyer has responsibility for the goods. So yeah, you'll see that often mentioned, like when you're talking to a freight forwarder, it's if it's FOB, it's kind of port to door, and then if it's EXW, it's door to door. When you're talking to manufacturers, they're going to send you pricing often in EXW or FOB. So now that you have a better understanding of what they are, I would definitely suggest making sure that all the quotes that you're getting are actually in FOB. It's allowing you to compare everything to apples, because naturally a pricing that's FOB should be a little bit higher than EXW because they're including part of the transportation. And so by doing only FOB, you're kind of eliminating that first responsibility of that first leg of the transportation. So it's just going to be a little bit simpler for you, and I would highly recommend having all of the manufacturers quote you in FOB. Next kind of term that's often used is MOQ, or minimum order quantity. Definitely pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to make sure that we cover this with a little bit of tactics. So this is the minimum amount of order for a specific production run with your manufacturer. It's definitely often negotiable. It really depends, again, on that supplier. But here's some quick kind of workarounds that we've used in the past that I think can be really, really helpful for you guys. So let's say that their MOQ is 1,000 units. But you specifically only wanted to do 500 to start. So some of the little tricks that we've used in the past is like, you can, one is try ordering 500 of two different colors. Let's say you were planning on doing a blue version and a black version. Then instead of doing 1,000 for each, you could convince them to do like, look, I really want to test these two different colors and see which ones perform well. And then if this does well, then I'm going to actually do green and red and yellow and all these different colors. But I wanted to make sure that these are going to do well and the quality is going to be strong. So let's do 500 of each. The other approach that you can do is a little bit different, but you're saying like, okay, I'm going to order that 1,000 units. But to start, I actually want to do a quality assurance test. My manager requires this for every single one of our orders. Let's start with the 500, and then the next order will for sure be over 1,000 once my manager approves it. So those are kind of a little tricks around MOQ. And then we have lead time. So the lead time is basically the time between you starting the order and then the completion of the actual production process. And just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the initiation or like when that order starts is usually for a new relationship when the funds actually receive into your manufacturer's bank account. It's not when you send them a screenshot. It's not when you say, hey, start production. We've actually, built relationships over the years. So we can tell them usually, hey, can you start production now? The payment will be in your account in the next week or the next few days. And they're okay with it. But again, from the manufacturer's perspective, if you're a new client and you're telling them to start production, that means they need to order raw materials. They need to get things printed. That might not fly. So one of the pro tips that I wanted to make sure to include is that around the Chinese holidays, Q4, or let's say it's like a seasonal product, let's say you're doing like Halloween products, those can definitely be impacted, or like the lead times can be extended around those times. And for Chinese New Year's, that's before Chinese New Year's and after Chinese New Year's. So just wanted to make sure that you guys are totally aware of that. And then you have other things like to be asking around like the lead time. They're going to tell you, let's say 30 days. So is that working days or is that calendar days? And then if they're working days, let's say, different factories work different amount of days. They can have different shifts. So are you guys working 5 days a week, 6 days a week, or even 7 days a week sometimes? So just getting a better understanding of what that means. And then do you guys have specific holidays that you guys are celebrating anytime soon? And then as you're getting a better understanding of what they mean by lead time, then you want to make sure that that's confirmed in the PI. I prefer to get a date if you can, like a specific they commit to having finished. But a lot of the time they're going to have like, it's just 20 days or 30 days. But you want to really define this with the manufacturer so they know they're like, okay, they've gone through this before. And then the pro tip for this one is, make sure to budget an extra 2 to 3 days at the end of the production process, specifically for inspections. And we'll cover that a little bit further along in this module. And then the last thing is the customs bond. So this one's super, super important. But basically what a customs bond's purpose is to guarantee that you guys are actually going to be paying for your duties and your taxes. So for instance, let's say that you send in a few shipments and you never pay the US Customs Office. That means that on your next shipment, they might actually seize your shipments as collateral until you actually pay. So the way that I look at it is kind of like a social security number for your business freight. It's their way of tracking your credit worthiness basically as a business. There's two different types. One is a continuous bond, which means that you can do unlimited shipments for 1 year, and it's usually around like $400. And then the other option is a single use. So it's one time. I've usually seen it at like around $65 per entry. Again, if you're going to be doing like a lot of reorders and you're planning on launching more products from different manufacturers, I would most likely go with a continuous bond. But it really just depends if you're wanting to try your first product and just seeing if you even like the business. Totally single use is fine. You can upgrade to a continuous bond on the next one. And then I just wanted to make sure that there's like different requirements or minimums, I guess, for when you actually need a continuous bond. With Trump's legislation, it's actually kind of in flux right now, so it might change, but I'll make sure to update you guys as that happens. That's pretty much it for all the supply chain fundamentals. Super, super excited. Next, we're going to be doing an Alibaba walkthrough. Thanks so much.